One nation.
All right. Roll call.
Director Hatcher,
Here.
Director Lamnon,
Here.
Director Andrade,
Here.
Director Hodges,
Here.
President Rosen.
Here.
Thank you.
All right. We have introduction of new employees. Okay. Good evening, honorable board of directors. Mike Mastroni, recreation manager. Tonight, I have the pleasure of introducing Rachel Braver, who is our new communications and outreach analyst. So a little bit about Rachel. Rachel joins H.A.R.D from where she was previously at the food bank of Contra Costa in Solano County. Initially hired on as an intern, Rachel quickly moved up as the communications department grew. She started out as a communications coordinator and worked her way up to the community marketing manager. Under her stewardship, Rachel oversaw the visuals of the food bank brand, amplified the food bank's social media presence, and managed all graphic design projects. In tandem with her time at the food bank, Rachel has been active in projects where she has provided her expertise to local nonprofits and the community. Her former supervisor spoke highly about Rachel's creativity, productivity, as she is proficient in both graphic design and copywriting. Rachel's ability to take big picture concepts and make it happen is amazing. Rachel has been praised for being a really good human and is guaranteed to elevate future potlucks at H.A.R.D with her creative plant-based dishes. Overall, Rachel can do everything and is a one-stop shop. When Rachel is not at work, she enjoys spending time outdoors with friends and family, going to the farmer's market, watching competition cooking shows with her husband, and MasterChef Australia is one of her favorite shows to watch. So we are very happy to have Rachel join our Recreation Arts and Community Services team here at H.A.R.D. And Rachel, if you'd like to come up and say a few words and introduce yourself.
No color on the butt. Thank you for the warm welcome. After meeting the people at H.A.R.D in my first week here, I'm blown away by the depth of programming that has been coming out of the Arts and Rec department and the commitment of everyone here to safe, accessible parks and green space for the entire community that I also call home. I look forward to bringing my passion for service and my extensive nonprofit marketing experience to share the stories of the programs and participants in this great district. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And now we're moving on to public comments for matters not otherwise listed on the agenda. The Board of Directors welcomes your comments under this section, but is prohibited by state law from discussing items not listed on the agenda. Your item will be taken under consideration and referred to the Board of Directors, committees, and/or staff to provide an opportunity for all members of the public who wish to address the board, a time allocation of 3 minutes for each individual speaker, and a 30-minute total time for public testimony on any item has been established by the Board of Directors. And I have 4 cards for items that are not on the agenda. And number 1, let's hear from James Oakman.
President Roven and honorable directors, my name is James Oakman. I'm 11 years old and I live in Hayward, California. This summer, I set a goal to visit at least 40 parks during my summer vacation. I went with my dad and other family members. And every night we visited a different park 6 days a week. We passed 40 parks and I changed my goal to visit every single park in my home city of Hayward. I learned there are parks in Hayward run by the Hayward Area Recreation and Park District, by the East Bay Regional Park District, and even some by the city of Hayward. There are 60 parks in Hayward and I visited them all. We've even visited a few more. Tonight, here at the Park District office, is my 65th park visited, and I took pictures at everyone. On weekdays, we visited parks with playgrounds or trails. On Sundays, we visited plazas and parks without play areas after church. And on Saturdays, we took a break and let everyone else have the parks. I would like to tell you a little bit about what I learned. I have 3 things that I decided were most important in the parks. To me, the most important thing is the way I feel when I'm in the park. Second is what is around the park. That includes what is next to the park, like buildings and other things. What kind of trees and other nature that makes the area look nice. And last are the features in the park. I really like swings and seesaws. It was always disappointing to me when a park didn't have a swing. I really do like some of the new parks feature designs though. I would also like to tell you my 3 favorite parks. My favorite is La Placenta, second is Palmacia, and my third is Weeks. La Placenta and Weeks have really nice nature. I love the trumpet flower vines over on the picnic area and the redwood trees behind the basketball court at La Placenta. I love all the trees and the open fields and the totem pole of Hayward's history at Weeks. Palmacia was really cool, had really cool new park features that I loved trying out right after it opened. 3 worst parks are Memorial Park, San Lorenzo Creek Trail, and Weeks. Even though I like the trees and the open field at Weeks, the whole park's fields run down and dirty, just like Memorial and San Lorenzo Creek. All 3 of these parks and a few more could use some serious cleanup. I definitely visited some parks where the play features had graffiti, cobwebs, and felt dirty, but all 3 of these parks felt the most run down out of them all. Thank you for taking care of our parks for us to visit. Please try to make all of them better. I would be happy to tell anyone my thoughts of any of our 60 Hayward parks. I already told my dad that next vacation we will visit all of the hard parks in not just in Hayward. We already got started on that. I like the play area in Lashland, Zocolo, but it needs some trees or something around it to make it feel nicer. Thank you all for doing Thank you all that you do and for listening to me tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, James. Right. Mr. Glenn Cartwright?
Ready to push a button? Oh, okay.
We're good.
Thanks for hearing me out tonight. I'm Glenn Cartwright. Live on Durham Way in Hayward. I'm here with 2 other residents with me. And for the better part of a year and a half, I've been trying to work with H.A.R.D to reduce the liability that we have that exists on our street right now. I've been working with Chris Peterson and Mike Williams with absolutely no results. So as best as I know of, the Durham Way Greenbelt Trail is the only trail that at the intersection of Oaks Drive and Durham Way has no signs, has no hard signs, has no rules, has no times, has no anything. So what happens is that people, non-residents, let me say, Durham Way is specifically a private street. The public has access for about the first 500, 600 feet onto Durham Way, specifically to use the H.A.R.D trail. Not a problem. Happy to have them there. It's everybody else that is wandering the streets that causes a liability, because if the trail is closed, sometimes they turn around and sometimes they don't go back, which is my point. H.A.R.D, when they do maintenance, if the trail is closed because of maintenance or mountain lions or whatever, the pedestrians don't know that until they've traveled down a street with no sidewalks around a blind, heading onto traffic on a street into a blind curve until they see the trailhead, maybe there's a closed sign or not. So I've been asking very simply, I asked Chris and I asked Mike, I say, hey, I'd rather work with you than against you. Just help us out with signage. And that's all I've ever asked. That and an educational component. Maybe you need to have a H.A.R.D ranger at the trailhead to explain to people that, hey, you're welcome on the street, but you need to be using the trail. And I can't get an answer. In fact, only reason I'm here is because Mike Williams told me, he says he hasn't gotten approval. He said that you might need to go to the board to let them know the problem to get some traction, which is completely foreign to me because I'm guessing that the director of parks has the authority to put some signs in. So, but I guess not. So I'm here doing my due diligence. You should know that we've waited. It's been months since I've heard anything. Happy to provide you the letter that went out to our attorneys. We either want to work with you or we will litigate to shut the trail down. It's that simple because we don't want the exposure for the liability that exists now, but we're happy to work with H.A.R.D to come to a solution. That's it. If you'd like copies of this, I'm happy to give them to you.
Thank you for commenting. Should we get copies of that? I think that might be good. I think that's, give them all to Christie and we'll read through those.
We'll turn it over to staff and have
Yep.
that taken care of.
Thank you. Damo Chitababu? Did I butcher that?
Yeah. Well, we got it right.
Oh,
Thank you for the opportunity, Director Peter Rosen and all of you. I'm here also a resident of Durham Way, along with Glenn. Just want to second what he said, reiterate what he said, and reiterate that it is a liability issue for the association and that private road if anything were to happen to the pedestrians. Thank you.
okay. Thank you for comments. And David Gearings?
Board and public, thank you for listening to our comments. My name is David Gehring, 35-year resident of Hayward and 23-year resident of Durham Way. And I'm just essentially here to just back up my neighbors here. We do have a sizable liability issue potentially with a lot of superfluous traffic coming in. What we need to do, I should say, walking on our road, especially during certain times of the year where visibility is limited. So we really want to work with H.A.R.D in creating proper signage to begin really policing and mitigating that potentially problematic traffic. We don't want to have any lawsuits, pop up where somebody's been run over by a resident. So at any rate, thank you so much for listening to our comments.
Thank you for coming. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to the consent calendar. Actually, are there any public comments online? Should I be checking for that? Okay, then I'll close the public comments. Okay. So closing the public comments, moving on to the consent calendar.
President Rosen, I'll move 5.1 and 5.2 on the consent.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. And now we got to try the new doohickey, right? Yes. You might need help. Did you get a window pop up?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Oh, there you go. All right. Perfect. All right. We're getting there. Well done. All right. There are no written communications. I'm sorry, I should say that passed unanimous, the consent calendar. The written communications, there are none. We're now on to public hearing 7.1. Ordinance increasing rate of compensation for board of directors.
Good evening, Honorable Board of Directors and President Rosen. Christy Briseno, District Clerk. Section 5784.15A of the California Public Resources Code allows the board by ordinance to increase per meeting compensation for board members by an amount not to exceed 5% annually. The board will conduct a public hearing and after the close of the public hearing, consider introduction of the proposed ordinance. Implementing the provisions of the ordinance would increase total board compensation from $110.25 to $115.76 per meeting. Staff recommends the board take the following actions. Hold a public hearing on the proposed ordinance, and after the close of the public hearing, by motion, waive the full reading and introduce the attached ordinance increasing rate of compensation for the Board of Directors of the Hayward Area Recreation and Park District.
Could we get a? Okay, thank you. So I'd like to open the public comment, public hearing on the proposed ordinance. And are there any comments from the public on said? Then I would close the public hearing. And I think I need a motion.
Question.
Oh, yes.
This is for up to 6 meetings.
Yes.
This is for up to 6 meetings per month.
You're currently, you currently can be compensated for up to 6 meetings per month. It was 5. We changed it to 6 because the average meetings you attend is 9.5, but that's an item agenda because you have to approve that number 6 annually.
Okay.
This is for the compensation. The compensation was $100 per meeting or $500 a month. We changed it to 6 and $105 per meeting. So your current compensation for your 9 meetings and probably 25 hours of board work a month is $625 maximum. And we're just looking to increase that by $5 per meeting for you. And then we'll talk about you reaffirming 6 meetings is still applicable. And we can talk more about that item when we get there. That was basically
Thank
based
you.
on
Yeah,
member
I just wanted the
opportunities.
background. Thank you.
All right. Okay. No other comments from any other board members? Okay. Then we need a motion to waive the full reading.
I'll second.
Okay. Got it. That went smoothly. Well done, guys. All right. All right. Now we are, again, that was 5-0 unanimous. On to the big thing of the day, district elections, public hearing, 7.2. Should I read the whole thing? District elections, public hearing. On April 19th, 2024, the Hayward Area Recreation Park District received a notice of possible California Voting Rights Act violation. In response, H.A.R.D adopted a resolution on May 20th, 2024 to transition to by-district elections and engage redistricting partners to ensure a fair process. H.A.R.D has since hosted 4 community workshops and 2 public hearings to solicit community testimony, and the board of directors has provided direction to redistricting partners on communities of interest and district/ward boundaries. Staff recommends the board of directors receive a presentation from redistricting partners and receive input from the community regarding the composition of the board of directors districts to be established for by district elections beginning with the 2026 election cycle.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me. I'm Paul Mitchell. I'm the owner of Redistricting Partners. I always like to start by pointing out a mistake, and there's a mistake on that slide, and today's date is not July 15th.
Wow.
But I just wanted to make that clear. I'm going to go through this presentation. I'm going to cover a number of different things about redistricting. We'll call it redistricting because that's the normal term people use. It's actually a districting under the California Voting Rights Act. But we'll go through the traditional rules and how we do that and what it means. We're going to go through public testimony. And in this case, public testimony isn't just people coming up to the microphone or writing in a letter. It's mapping. And it's actually like drawing and being creative about looking at the communities of interest in the area and looking at proposed maps. So it's much more interactive kind of public input. Then we're going to go through some draft maps. And when we say draft maps, we mean maps that we've actually created as draft maps based on the input that we've heard and what we've seen the public engage with. And then we will go through any other maps that the public has looked at that have met a 7-day timeline requirement. So any maps that have been public for 7 days, we can consider and talk about. And we have all of those queued up if necessary. And then we're going to go through the rest of the hearing schedule and next steps. So first off, this is something I'm sure you've heard, and many who are here, I've heard this before, but just in case people are watching this or here for the first time, I want to go through the basic rules that we use when we consider drawing districts, either for a, county supervisorial district, a city council district, a special district. These are the same rules that we use under the State's Fair Maps Act. The first is that they're relatively equally sized. And what does that mean? For the purposes of the California law on drawing districts and local agencies, it means that there is a no more than 10% range from the largest district to the smallest district. A lot of people like to think, okay, well, that's 5% up or down, but really we're talking about a full range. It could be that you have, 4 districts that are 2% under and 1 district that's 8% over, and that's still a 10% range. And when we're talking about districts being equal sized, you don't really get extra points for the smaller deviation. It's not like the archery in the Olympics where you get, the best score for the dead in the middle. It's more like soccer. If it gets in the net, it's okay. So it's a decision about whether or not you're within that 10% buffer, not necessarily that the smallest deviation is the best. Districts need to be contiguous, meaning that they need to be whole parts. This is more an issue that we see in other agencies where you might have islands, little pockets of an agency that are disconnected, or you might have issues where, say, if we were doing a redistricting in an area that had a big mountain range in the middle, you'd say, well, okay, Paul, I can draw like this community from this side of the mountain range and that community on that side of the mountain range in the same district. Is that contiguous? Well, from a satellite photo, it might look contiguous, but functionally it isn't. We'll talk a lot about maintaining communities of interest. Then this next one is a little bit more subjective, but it's about having lines that are easily understandable to residents, that they see it and they go, oh, okay, I guess I understand why that district's there. That makes sense to me. And then also following natural, either man-made or natural boundaries like a freeway, a creek, a mountain range, those kind of things that when you see the community make sense. And then finally, keeping districts compact. Now, compactness in redistricting has probably 20 master's theses on what is a compact district. There's these things I can show you about putting a rubber band around my hand, or we can talk about mathematical calculations and bumps and all kinds of things. There's all kinds of stuff. In one state I worked in, the redistricting said it couldn't be goofy lines. That was literally written in the law, was goofy. But in California, we have a really new standard that is actually kind of interesting and different than they have everywhere else in the state, everywhere else in the country. And the idea of keeping districts compact for us is that you're not bypassing nearby populations to go get some faraway population. So if we were drawing districts and we were drawing one district over here and it's all together, that would make sense. But what would not make sense is if we took the 3 people on the end and then kind of like came around and then took these 3 people over here, bypassing Scott, right? The idea of like drawing a district where you're trying to piece together odd parts that don't connect, that's where you get into a district not being compact under the state's law. So this is the full footprint of your district based on its census boundaries. And that's another point of this, is we have to draw these districts based on the census boundaries based on state law. We can't just kind of willy-nilly draw boundaries however we want. We have to use census blocks as the building blocks of these districts. Now, when we look at the district, there are these communities and cities that we want to consider when we're drawing the lines. And that's a potentially like built-in community of interest, because a lot of people are going to identify with their city. or their neighborhood. And so having these as kind of additional building blocks is a good way of thinking about it as well, absent other kind of community of interest testimony. Now, communities of interest is subjective, and there's a lot of different ways to think about a community of interest, but one way to think about community of interest is socioeconomics. So income, education can be communities of interest, and this one shows median income for the area with, you can see a little bit higher median income in that northern part of Castro Valley, and then some areas maybe around the 880 that have a little bit lower median income. I will point out that that most southern census block or census tract, I think that is, a lot of that is uninhabited, right? So that might just be an anomaly with the data that there's one real set of really nice houses there, and it's not really indicative of it being, it's that's just a weird census block mostly. If we look at the percentage of renters, this also is a socioeconomic. This can be used as a part of a socioeconomic calculation. And you can see the inverse of what we saw on the prior slide with the high income in Castro Valley up there in the northern part, and now very few renters up there. So this is another kind of proxy for socioeconomic status. Now, in the districting process, we're going to be talking about counts of population, and we're going to be doing it using two different data sets, and they're represented here on the two tables, one at the top and one at the bottom. The one at the top is 2020 census. That's the actual full count everybody census every decade. That is and it's a point in time. That means, on April 1st, 2020, where everybody was living, that is a hard number that we use to determine the equal population of each district. It does have the demographic breakdowns by race and ethnicity, but the second data set is what we really use for looking at race and ethnicity, because that is the citizen voting age population, a proxy for eligible voters. So we're talking about political power, political representation in the lower table. That data table is not a point in time. And that data table is not a whole count. That is a survey that goes out every year, and they make averages and estimates. And so when we see these numbers, you'll see the Latino citizen voting age population throughout the whole district at 27%. We might get a new number next year that it's at 28 or 26. That top table won't change until 2031. And the bottom table is more fluid and it changes over time. So given that we have a 309,000 total population, the size of each district is roughly 62,000. So we had 21 total district map submissions. And I want to tell you, that's a large number of map submissions for a district like this. So we've had agencies that have gotten 2 or 3 or 5 or 10. 41 is pretty large. Now, we did a real good looking through of all those to determine which ones comply with the Fair Maps Act, those criteria. And 17 we found complied with the Fair Maps Act on real objective criteria. It didn't mean that they were the ones we thought were the prettiest. It just meant like that they assigned all the census blocks to a district, that they had districts all being, contiguous, and those kind of basic objective criteria. And then there were 4 maps of communities of interest, and those were presented at the prior meeting as well. So I'm going to go through first, and I don't know if we'll have a public testimony that will go through this map in more detail, but this is a map that was submitted along with a letter to the board by Mr. Rafferty and his group, I believe. And this map attempts to do some things that we're probably going to see being thematic through a lot of these maps. It first off tries to identify a part of the agency, that District 1, with a higher Asian population east of the 880, which is also an area that we saw earlier has, a little bit lower income than some other parts of the district. It follows major roads. It creates these districts in a way that, like I said, some of these boundaries are going to be kind of repeated, and I'll let him during his public comment describe more attributes of this plan. What I will go through real quick is the data behind the plan. when we look at this map, first off, we're going to go through this on all the slides. This third row down here where it says deviation percentage, that was that 10% number. So when we look at the district that is the most overpopulated, it's only 1.2% overpopulated. And we look at the side that's most underpopulated, that's negative 1.1. So the total deviation of this plan from the biggest to smallest district, that is 2.3%. So roughly like 1,400 people difference from the biggest district to the smallest district, which when you're talking about districts at 62,000, that's very, very well within relatively equal size. When we look at the ethnic breakdown below, you'll see a couple districts where you have populations of ethnicity that seem to be more densely populated, like in District 1, that 37.4% Asian CVAP. That is much higher than the 27 or so percent Asian CVAP total. And you can see the other districts are below that percentage. And so it's a way to build around that community of interest a district that can encapsulate more of that population. So you can also see that there are two districts that are over 30% Latino. So District 3 and District 5, the 34.9 and 37.7. So the three maps that we drew, maps A, B, and C, I just want to walk through these as well to kind of give you an idea how they were constructed. And then it's time for you or the public to comment on all these maps and tell us thoughts that you have or ways that you want to see maps done as we go through an iterative process. These aren't like take it or leave it kind of maps. So the first draft, draft A, 6.3% deviation. Again, it's in the soccer net, but it's not as small a deviation as the first map we showed you. One of the criteria we looked at for this was looking at asthma rates. So this is a health indices kind of approach to looking at the map. And as you can see, we again have that first district east of the 880. Then we do use a lot of kind of major roads. I think Mission Boulevard is used on District 2 to kind of separate that and try to use major highways and kind of landscape to help determine where those boundaries are drawn. These indices are kind of hard to see, but if we dive into it, we'll see that some of the areas further west have, or further east have lower asthma rates. And the areas further west in District 1 have higher asthma rates. Also, if you look at District 1, it has an airport. Obviously, if we look at Oakland Airport, its asthma rate indices is like off the charts. But so nothing in your area is even close to what you see like in Oakland, but it is a little bit higher there in District 1. You also have Industrial Boulevard. Almost anywhere in the state where you have an Industrial Boulevard is going to have higher asthma rates and so on. And that's true throughout the state. I see that a lot. When we look at this, if we look at some of these neighborhoods, you can also see that we tried to, where we could, follow those neighborhoods. So you can see District 2, that triangular shape, that triangular shape is there based on a neighborhood boundary for a reason, as opposed to being arbitrary. And it's important when we're drawing districts to be able to point to the reasons for each of these zigs and zags rather than, you know, just acting like it was spaghetti thrown against a wall. This is the same map, but with those census designated places. So you can see the northern part of Fairview, how that line follows the top there. That was to try to follow that boundary. But then, of course, you couldn't put all of Castro Valley in one district. It's just too large. So we try to use those boundaries where we can, you know, as a tertiary kind of boundary to lean on. Now, in this map, like I said, it's a 6.3% deviation. We also have, remember I said that District 1 was kind of similar to the first map we saw. That first map we saw had 37% Asian in District 1. This one has 32.4, so it's the most Asian of the districts, but it's not as high as that first map. And this map has two districts that are 36% Latino. Draft B, Again, this one is trying to build maps based on communities of interest. You'll see a very different setup now from that District 1 and the first two maps. Now we have that District 2 and 3 kind of drawing those districts a little bit more east to west. Again, trying to lean in on some of these neighborhood boundaries where we can, and where we can't lean on a neighborhood boundary, trying to use a major road or thoroughfare. And then again, trying to follow much tighter those same boundaries around the other census designated places. And then total deviation 7.2. And now on this one, you can see the District 3 has the 34% Asian population, and we still have two districts that are 35 and 36% Latino. Draft C is using school district boundaries as a community of interest. And this might be something where I don't know all the other things that are on your agenda from time to time, but maybe if you're having more interactions with school districts and resources with school districts, then maybe school district boundaries do make sense for you to use versus, somebody's the water district, they might not care about the school district boundaries. So here we have the school district boundaries as an overlay. Those neighborhoods again, and you can see again as a default where we need to, using those neighborhoods as a boundary to snap to. The census designated places, you can see we're not following those census designated places as closely on this one as we were on the prior ones. And then again, that 7.9% deviation. On this one, the most Asian district is 32% Asian, and the most Latino districts are right at 33%. So essentially you have three districts that are right around the 33% Latino population. Now, the idea with this process is if there's a plan that you look at and you think, hey, I think that's a great starting point, then we can go and look at that and then come back with different iterations based on things you might want to look at. So it's about identifying potential preferred plans, talking about suggested changes, and then provide any direction for new maps that we can come back with at a future meeting. We are right now in bold there, August 5th, the introduction of draft maps. That August 19th meeting is arguably the most important meeting from a process standpoint, because at that meeting, you really do want to narrow down to one map. That's ideal. You could have two maybe or something like that, but what you don't want to have is a litany of 20 maps you're looking at after that August 19th meeting, because when you get to your September 16th meeting, you want to have a final vote on a single map, a map that the public understands. This is the map you're looking at. It's up for a yay or nay vote. And it makes that a clearer process for the public than going into that September 16th meeting without any idea what map you're going to ultimately adopt. So the idea would be today we have this overview, we take input from the community, and we get feedback. We come back August 19th, we've got some maps that are made a little bit better, maybe a couple final adjustments, and then hopefully one map to go to that final meeting on September 16th where there'll be a final vote. When we do these maps, we will go through a process of identifying what districts are up what time and what years, just to make sure that all that's done. But right now, I think what's most important is to kind of focus on the shapes of the districts, what communities we want to be really thinking about as communities of interest, and then putting together the final map. One note on the community of interest is that when we talk about these communities of interest, we really mean it. We're really serious about the neighborhoods, the cities, the health indices, the socioeconomic variables. We're so serious, and the ethnic populations, we're so serious about it that at the end, we will be drafting a report that identifies the communities of interest that we utilized in coming up with these maps, and what communities of interest were kept together in the plan and what communities of interest were divided in the plan. And that's kind of it's a reassurance to the public that these were not maps that, again, were like just created by somebody throwing spaghetti against the wall or some other untoward purpose. And that's my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Questions from the board? You want to hear the public first? Okay. Okay. That's the case. Then I'm going to open up the public hearing. And if any member of the audience would like to address the board, you will have 3 minutes to do so. When your name is called, please approach the podium and begin your comments. And I believe we also have some people online, possibly. Should I alternate maybe? Okay. So first comment is from Mark Oakman.
Thank you, members of the board. That was a really informative presentation by district and partners, and so I'd like to say thank you for that. This is a topic that I've been curious about more than interested in, and I gave some comment on my feelings about this process at the last meeting. Adding to that for this meeting, and it was not intended as such that that my son was going to give public comment earlier in the meeting on visiting all the parks. But I think this board has a good understanding that my family has a good, solid understanding of the location of all the parks within the district. At least now having visited all the ones in our city, and I can say personally that I probably, no, I can say I have visited all of them throughout the rest of the district. The one thing that the maps did not reflect, and I heard that the board made comment on it at the last meeting, was the location of the various park locations in each of those districts. As you look at some of those wards or districts as they were put together, there's going to be some amount of inequity in how many parks, how many facilities are represented by each of the districts. And I think that's something to be careful because that has the ability to create a future inequality as each of those districts represented by an elected official and becoming their own community within the district. For one to be more service than the other is going to put undue burden on the district as a whole to try and come up with something that has historically been one of the district's challenges. And how do we park every area of the district with equality? How do we provide facilities with a certain amount of equality? That map A keeps a lot of the neighborhoods together and has a lot of wisdom. But I think some overlay with the facilities within those districts would be something that would be very beneficial to look at and be very careful in looking at, because without that, again, there is room for a lot of inequality. And then I was reminded earlier this evening of another concept. There is a lot of building going on the Mission Corridor, creating districts right now with that variance. When there's a potential for a great amount of move-in in certain areas, we don't want to be going through this process again and again, and not only districting out the district, but then redistricting and redistricting and redistricting. So again, my point this evening is to, as you make your final decision, as you ask for more information, be mindful of the different facilities that are already in the district so that we can maintain an equality, not only for all of our communities of interest, but for those future districts that will become, in essence, their own community of interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And we have someone online.
Hey, Matt Turner here. I really appreciate having that tool online. Very excellent device for getting detailed public input. And I saw that people had quite a bit of fun with it, although most of it displayed a pretty enormous amount of ignorance about the district and its complexities. People were just trying to draw lines. Some of the things I did notice were that the census designated places had some errors. For example, the Blackstone Old Fairview portion of Castro Valley was listed as part of Fairview. That happens quite often. And the unincorporated area in particular is quite fragmented. We have a hodgepodge of special districts, and Castro Valley alone has 4 school districts, two park and rec districts, 2 sanitary districts. It's quite complex. It's 5 zip codes. Only 2 of them actually say Castro Valley. There are parts of the city of Hayward that have Castro Valley zip codes. So people's sense of identity is badly fragmented. And if you ask many people in the unincorporated where they live, they'll tell you that they live in San Lorenzo, or and when they in fact actually live in part of Ashland or Cherryland. People just don't know, and many people think they live in a city when they don't. For example, 94541 is one of the largest zip codes in the Bay Area. It's associated with Hayward, but more than 55% of the people in 94541 live outside of the city of Hayward. 94578, the west side of Castro Valley, is 94578 San Leandro, and people think they live in San Leandro. And say 94578 is also Ashland, parts of Cherryland, in San Lorenzo as well. So these things get really complicated. So I came up with a couple of maps where I tried to winnow that out, looking at city boundaries, zip code boundaries, special district boundaries, and spheres of influence as listed out by LAFCO. So, and I was able to get the numbers within, I know he said that it doesn't matter if you get the bullseye as long as you're within 10%, but I was able to get to under 1%, and keep people geographically and with many other economic and special interest things consolidated. All of these things are things I'm very familiar with working on the planning department on areas of environmental significance and environmental justice planning, and certainly the deficit of parks makes a big difference too in some of our big areas where there are poor health outcomes, lack of active transportation, that kind of thing. So please take a look at my maps. They say zip code, city boundaries. I did a pretty deep dive, and again found errors with some of the assumptions by the consultant.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. And we have another. Is Dave Robinson here? Oh, there. Sorry. There you go.
President Rosen, may I comment just quickly? Are we able to look at the maps from each of the presenters while we're doing the discussion point, or is that part of this? We district partners obviously presented their maps as individuals talk about their map. Is there a way to pull up their map? Is there?
If their map is submitted at least 7 days ago, it will be at the end of our PowerPoint presentation. Your staff could, if the person said the name of their map, like the number, they could potentially just do a find and find it in the presentation, bring it up. But if it is,
I just feel it's that important when you have people put this amount of time into their maps to be able to.
Sometimes at other redistrictings we've done, when somebody comes on, you can just ask them if they have a map number that they want to reference. And if they don't have a map to reference, it's okay. If they do, then they can tell you at that time.
Matt, what's the name of your map? Or do you have
I can pull it up and then I can text you the name and number of the map. That way you can ask for it to be pulled up towards the end.
Great, thank you very much. So we move on to the next, but I just wanted to note that as the next presenter comes up, kind of note the name of your map or the number if you have it.
Slide 65. I had a sneak peek beforehand. So there is. So I'm Dave Robinson. The purpose of the California Voting Rights Act is to make sure that protected voting rights groups are able to elect a candidate of their choice. And so that's this is the only map that does that. It's pretty much established that we can't do this with 5 districts, so with 5 single member districts, but there is another way. There's a provision in the California Voting Rights Act that allows for a court to establish another way to reach a solution. One of those options that's been worked out by the courts, there's examples of this elsewhere in California and in the US, is the use of ranked choice voting with multi-member districts. And so that's what this map is about. So this has District 1 is a 2-member district, and District 2 is a 3-member district. So there's precedent for that in Southern California to have different size districts. And so then you would use ranked choice voting to elect the people in these districts. So what that does is that creates a different election threshold. You saw that in a lot of these districts, we end up with like 37% Asian or 35% Latino. And so with ranked choice voting, you can actually elect someone when you have a three-member district, you elect a candidate with 25% of the vote. So any of these groups that has more than 25% are guaranteed to be able to elect a candidate of their choice if that's what they want to do. And so it meets that criterion that is looked for both in the California Voting Rights Act, and there's also a required check for it in the Fair Maps Act. So this is a way to get to that answer. It's also in the best interest of the plaintiffs who wrote the original letter to the Park District. And so just a couple other comments on the way this is drawn. One provision in Fair Maps Act is that we should not divide communities of interest. And the best way to not divide communities of interest is to not draw lines. So when you only have this one line that has to go through the district, you're not going to be dividing many communities. And when you do that, you can see that most of that line is going along an unpopulated mountain ridge between Palomares Canyon and the Hayward Hills. And then beyond that, it kind of follows pretty close to kind of Grove Way, cutting along the city boundaries. And I tried to not divide the unincorporated areas as much as I could, because as we've heard, it would be good for them to be able to be cohesive and have their own representation. Those were the thoughts that I had in drawing the line itself. If the board wants to proceed with this, they'd have to work with Mr. Rafferty to work through a solution with by going through a court and establishing a court settlement similar to what the city of Hayward has done. So I think that covers what I had to say. So thanks.
Thank you. Do we have another person online? Okay. And are there any other members of the public that would like to speak? You're welcome to fill out a. Oh, it's okay.
Matt Turner sent me his number for his app. Would you like that now? 245514.
Oh, it's not on the PowerPoint.
And excuse me, and 245420. He has two maps. Two. Yep.
Can we look at the data on this map too?
And if it's appropriate to revisit Matt Turner's public comment to have him back on to describe his map, if that's appropriate. Okay.
Yeah, I think we've already heard it. We can look through it.
This is the one.
Might not have been in time. Okay. All right, thank you. And then, okay, and now Mr. Rafferty, you'd like to come up?
Thank you. I think our map wasn't actually posted this afternoon, but we do hope that you post the map and the letter, because we do care about where the facilities are. We created a map showing that, and we had 15 different socioeconomic variables, some of which are very particular to a park district. Like, are there areas where people don't have vehicles, where they can't go to some facilities, and how are they being served? But the focus has been on Hayward and the Asian community, because that's where the real problem is. This is a community that hasn't been represented in electoral government and elected officials at any level. with very few exceptions. And frankly, I was extremely pleased to get more than 40% combined Asian API CVAP in a district that will look like what we're trying to achieve in the school district and the city. I think that's quite important, but it's not just race or underrepresentation. Every disadvantaged community as defined by the EnviroScan SB 535 is in this district, just as every community with an EnviroScan score of less than 20, which is a nice place to live, is in District 4. District 4 is a white majority district with high socioeconomic values on 10 of the 15 measures, very high socioeconomic values on 10 of the 15 measures that we identified. So these two contrasting districts are kind of the initial framework of our map. And we looked at the remainder of the district and found three logical ways to divide it. One, San Leandro is a high Latino community, and one of the districts is largely defined. This isn't my map, by the way, but is largely defined by its city boundaries. And then we found a district, we've been dealing with this in the school district. There's been a lot of dialogue about the irregular boundary between Cherryland and Hayward. There's an adjoining part of Hayward above B Street that is very, very similar. It not only has extraordinarily high rates of poverty, with more than a third below twice the poverty line, but it has very low SNAP and public assistance. This is a place that really needs an elected official. It really needs a community organizer. And this, we call it the challenge district because it has so many socioeconomic challenges and is so disempowered. So that was the priority. And then the remaining district is actually a very high Latino district in central Hayward. Now, I do want to qualify what the 10% is not a complete blank check, safe harbor. It exists for a reason. You don't have it in congressional districts. You do in local government so you can accommodate state purposes. So that's what you use to have clear boundaries, to keep neighborhoods together. And because this map has 2%, if you have testimony saying, I want this line, it's a malleable map. You can make changes that don't do violence to the fundamental decision. I'm very proud of this map. I wish I'd done as well in the school district. We're getting a good map there, but this map really sings. And so I hope you look at it seriously, and I hope you post this so that other members of the community, it exists to be improved.
All right,
So thank you.
Thank you. Is his map up here? Did it not make it on the PowerPoint?
It's the first map.
Is it the one that's up? Is it up now? Is this the one that's up now?
I think I need to apologize to Mr. Rafferty for that map not being posted. You should have got an out of office reply from me. I was gone for 3 weeks. I got back this morning. Excuse me. I got back this morning, so that could be the reason it got sent to the board and me, but it did not get sent to the clerk or the assistant to the general manager. So I apologize for that, but I'm glad it's at least here to look at today.
Got it. Yes, the very first map that's posted on there.
Oh, it is posted on the website, and the letter is also posted on the website. Yeah.
So this map is not the one that's being posted right now, is not the correct map? Okay. Okay, well, thank you. I have one more comment. April Chan.
Hi, good evening, board. You might remember when I was on the Fairview MAC. And so I would like to thank, I was there since the inception in 2018, and then I ascended to, or I was elevated a bit to the East Bay Mud Board. But what I want to say is that the unincorporated area is very complex. I've lived in Fairview for a long time, I represented Fairview, and I think it's very incorrect to say that Fairview, Old Fairview is part of Castro Valley. And in some ways it is. It's part of the school district. It's also part of the CV MAC. But remember, this development is called Old Fairview, Old Fairview. So most people know it as Fairview. And so if you talk to the people that live there, they actually do think they live in Fairview, and they do. It's just, like I said, very complex area. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chen. Are there any other public comments? No one else here wants to speak? Then I'm going to close the public comment and I'm going to actually bring it back to the board. Okay, can I get some comments from the board? Director Andrade?
Well, just so I think Mark mentioned about having to do this over again. We will be having to do this over again every 10 years, as I understand it. So it's not a set deal. So tonight we're supposed to narrow down the maps of out of 43, whatever it was, to ones we think most represent, from our point of view, the area and the communities of interest. To do that, I think I need to see maps side by side, and it's not, which we can do, I guess. But I mean, it's going to take a little bit to kind of think about it. The main thing is we're being sued because we don't have an Asian, possibly an Asian majority district or an Asian community where a district where an Asian as a community of interest can win an election, I guess. So has to be preserved somewhere, and I guess all the maps do that, or mostly, And then the rest is sort of like what kind of makes sense being from around here, and what we always considered. What is this Cherryland? This is Ashland. This is whatever it is. So, because that's kind of those kind of mental maps of what is a district or what's community of interest, that each one of us has a slightly different one. So, I mean, it all could be tweaked. I don't have any right now. I don't really have a preference. I mean, several of them look pretty good in terms of park distribution. The intent is we have a general plan or master plan, and the goal is to have a park within a 10-minute distance of everyone, 10-minute walking distance of everyone.
That's our understanding from our master plan.
Yeah.
I believe that we have actually achieved that, with the
Yeah.
exception of one area in South Castro Valley where we're trying to acquire the Laurel School.
Yeah.
To build that into a park.
Yeah.
But you
So-
can walk to a park within 10 minutes of every home in the district.
Right. And so some of these boundaries are not going to, of course, where there's a freeway, there's going to be a difference. But I mean, like Kennedy Park serves San Lorenzo as much as Hayward, even because they're right on the boundary. There's a lot of places that are right on the boundary of these districts, of these new districts, So, I mean, I don't know that we need to look at parks as, I don't think that's the criteria. I think the criteria is demographics. And I think and then community of interest in terms of an identity, and that's how I'll put it.
Director Hodges, do you have something?
Yeah, and I think I better keep it to myself, so.
Okay. Director Lamnon.
Sure. So thank you to everybody who spoke, everybody who drew maps, everybody who's been participating, and to the staff who've been really engaging with the community. I appreciate all of that. And thank you, redistricting partners. So first, a question. In terms of the 2-district map, can you speak to the legality of that process?
Yeah, so the California Voting Rights Act, the way that it's written, says that if you are in an at-large election system and you have racially polarized voting, then you have to transition to district elections. The creation of district elections is a way to essentially move out of the scope of the California Voting Rights Act. Once you are in district elections, California Voting Rights Act has nothing to do with you anymore. Fair Maps Act does, but you're out of the scope of that law. There have been agencies that have attempted, like Palm Desert attempted to do a multi-member district. They only did it for one election cycle, but they did a multi-member district system in accordance with an agreement with a court and the plaintiffs and the city council and everything. But the catch is that once you do that, you're still within the scope of the California Voting Rights Act. So if somebody were to come 2 or 4 or 6 years later and say, aha, I still believe that this system isn't resolving the underlying issue, you could then be forced to go back into the districts as the only kind of true way of getting outside the scope of the law. There might be other ways like ranked choice voting to try to deal with the underlying racially polarized voting and say, look, we don't have racially polarized voting anymore because this election system has undone that. But it's the burden's on you because you're still in the scope of the CVRA. It's complicated, I know, I'm sorry, but I have worked on dozens of conversions and worked on over 100 redistrictings in California, and I have not found one agency to go to ranked choice voting.
Okay, I appreciate that context. And as I understand it, our district is not really, there's not an obvious disempowerment of minority voters or a majority minority area, but and I'm not questioning our going to districts. I'm just saying that I'm just sort of reminding myself and my colleagues that there's not a particular disempowerment issue that we're trying to solve with this process. Is that
It's about
accurate?
thresholds.
Okay.
So you're not in a situation where you would meet a federal threshold of having the ability to create a majority minority district where there would be an argument that under federal law, there's vote dilution and a federal Voting Rights Act potential issue here. The California Voting Rights Act has a much more liberal interpretation of this, and it talks about the ability to influence the outcome of an election. And so the claim here is that, and it's not unique to you, but to other agencies in this area, that the Asian community has a diluted ability to influence the outcome of an election when it's 27% of the district as a whole versus constructing it in a way that's 37 or depending on how you calculate it, 40% of one district where they should be able to have a greater ability to influence the outcome of the election. It is a community of interest discussion. We're not drawing an Asian district. We are drawing a district where we're looking at all the criteria and we want to make sure that this particular community of interest that has a special concern is not having their voting power diluted through the process.
I really appreciate that context. Thank you. And of course, we do have members of the API community, both elected officials representing our community as well as on boards and commissions and so on. So, but I appreciate the context of what we're trying to achieve. That's really helpful. That threshold and opportunity. Certainly we want to empower our community as much as possible. So thank you for that explanation. So in terms of feedback, I also struggle with wanting to see more data. I did look at the ones online. The lens that I'm sort of using is, in an ideal world, I think my beloved city of Hayward would be 2 districts and then unincorporated would be the balance. I understand that population wise, we can't really do that. So I just have I'll call it a bias of not giving one community sort of a majority so 3 seats on a 5-member board is an automatic majority. And that's my challenge with that. But since that's not mathematically possible, then I looked at how do we make sure we are empowering the unincorporated communities and also sort of balancing the power of the city. So map C kind of did that well for me. So I appreciated that map. Also the preserve unincorporated, I think also kind of used that lens of preserving the power of the unincorporated. So those 2 sort of stood out to me at this point. I may have different thoughts as I look at them more, but that's where I'm at so far. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Hatcher.
Yeah, thank you, President Rosen. This is, all of us on this board, being in this district for most of our lives, my degree is in geography, so it's a pretty powerful your mind starts to kind of wander in really different areas of really getting it right. And I appreciate the recommendations from all the folks that have built the maps. When I look at the different, criteria that's been presented tonight around what really makes a COI a community of interest, and, the health piece was really pretty powerful. When I look at, what destroys some of our communities when you have the highest diabetes rates, the highest asthma rates, just very clear lines are drawn in our community. But two things kind of, I'm going to reference map C also. Is that, it's up. Okay, got it. Look, we do have 4 school districts, and we all kind of have issues with, where some of the school districts lines are drawn and what communities that they bleed into. And, but then I look with communities of interest, you look at similar communities around those schools and churches. If you really, years ago, I did a fun study of the churches in the Cherryland community, and, how many churches are in that community also, and what.
Sorry, we're talking faith communities?
Faith-based communities, correct. And so these areas are congregational areas also for different communities. And when I look at map C, based more on the school district concept, I am gravitated towards it. But I also wanted to look, while I'm looking at map C again, and take a look at the ownership rental rate, especially in District 2. So could you pull that map up real quick? And I'm looking at just District 2 because that potentially would be my district, and I just gravitated towards looking at that. And that,
so District 2,
yeah,
we can go back to the renter map. We just have to keep in our mind where District 2 is.
yeah, and it's
Yeah.
Again, and I agree with my colleagues, this is, we all looked at the maps prior, but it's almost like, I could look at a car all day long, but if I didn't know how to drive it, becomes the driving portion. So when I look at, District 2 is like, in that C map is San Lorenzo, half Cherryland, and all of Ashland, and I do see very distinct differences in that ownership versus rental rate. And I, again, these are just mine, spilling out here to see, San Lorenzo being, a single family homes, mostly, as you could see, non-renters on the majority. And so where I start to gravitate towards an area of like commonality based on this school district concept, and I see that not parse out in that piece of it too. So this whole conclusion is that this is not an easy, straightforward decision, and really taking a look at these different maps. And so I, again, I gravitated towards C myself in an initial look, and I did also towards A too in regards to the idea of the health issues in our community. So those are my comments for now.
Thank you, Director Hatcher. So I have some questions. So I apologize. I misunderstood. I thought we were going to go through all 17 of these maps and have a discussion and be here for 3 hours, and I was not looking forward to that. But so thank you for not taking the time to do that. However, there is some validity in actually digging into some of these maps, and so could you enlighten me onto, or all of us, onto why the 3 maps that you selected, what you referred to? Because my first inclination was I wanted to preserve the biggest COIs to us, which are the census designated places. And some of these maps basically slice up. I mean, one of the maps has part of Ashland, part of Hayward, and part of Castro Valley, and going all the way to Fairview, all in the same district, which I was like, that doesn't make any sense to me. So how do you determine that was it based on the community of interest comments that were there that had been proposed, and then you collated that, or how did you determine?
So when we created the 3 draft maps, we really wanted to create maps that represent a range of ideas. These weren't like, here's the 3 most perfect maps we could find. And that doesn't help sometimes. If we have a big spectrum of things that people are talking about, it doesn't help to give you the 3 narrowest maps at the median, right? Because that doesn't show you the different number of ways that things can be done. So draft A really did look more at environmental things. And then after that was done, started to piece together the lines and snap to neighborhoods or snap to city boundaries where you could, but where it didn't make sense, It would just, maybe it would just go down Mission Boulevard the whole way or something like that. And one of the challenges with this is, as you're doing it, you're always trying to do the population equality too. If you didn't have the population equality, these maps would all look beautiful because they would all make sense to everybody. Every line could snap to almost any neighborhood or city boundary, and everything would look a lot prettier. So when you put, if you're putting much heavier emphasis on one thing, you're kind of discounting the others. And so that's what we wanted to show you, is what happens in our assessment when you put, 40% of the emphasis on this health outcome and then discount the importance of keeping a city together. Then the second one says, okay, let's start with keeping cities together and communities and census designated places together. And also to clarify where there are discrepancies about what community is called what, we're just using the census's data on what a census designated place is. And we put the emphasis on that and then discount the environmental criteria or something like that. The one thing that we did make sure we kept a lens on in all three maps was not diluting the API community. So there was also that happening at the same time. And it is a challenge when you, it's kind of sometimes like solving one of those puzzles in the back of the New York Times. Like you're trying to solve for one thing, but not too negatively impact the other things. And so that's what we did when we created these. We don't want you to feel like these are the perfect maps and all the other maps are just, othered. If you have a map that was in the public submissions that you want to go to, Nicole's ready to just go straight to that map and I can talk about it. But really it is about that input like you've been having, and trying to see if there's, if there's one, sometimes people see a map and they're like, oh, that looks disgusting. Like that map does not make sense. And so we just remove it for the next presentation. Okay. So if there are maps you want to remove from consideration, that's helpful too. If you want to move A, B, and C.
Can we do that?
Yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
that would whittle it down. Because there's one other thing I wanted to point out. So first of all, I wanted to say, I really appreciate one of your early comments. I wrote it down. You don't get more points for smaller deviation. There was a tendency on some of these people to try and hit the bullseye, and that usually those maps weren't COI based, which was my concern because I wanted to keep our communities as tight together. And the second thing was Hayward Acres, I don't think fit into these equations. It wasn't mentioned and it wasn't considered as a unique community. And in some of these, it gets butchered into three locations, which is something I was worried about. And I don't think it made it onto your list, but Hayward Acres should be considered. And it's really dense. And so if you make the argument that it's in San Lorenzo, or you make the argument that it's in Hayward, or if you split it on, there's a common road that you can maybe divide on that might make more sense. But it is a distinct community that actually should be recognized.
We can work with your staff to make sure we have that. And we can also just draw it in the community-based, the COI tool.
Okay.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. So do we want to take the time to remove, say, 10 or 12 of these maps pretty quickly? Or is that a long length of time that, do you think it's worthwhile exercise?
I think there's some we can probably easily, like if we took the next 10 minutes to see if we can at least cull the field.
Yeah, there are a couple maps that when you look at it visually, you're going to have that reaction that I.
Okay.
Do you want to say something, Jim?
Yes, I would like you to take all the time you need this evening to get to a place where you feel comfortable with the process. We have done nothing but support the concept and the idea and the process and the meetings. And so I just want to keep moving forward in the most responsible manner possible to get this done quicker than many of our neighbors.
I appreciate it. Thank you. And I appreciate the time because I do think it's important and I appreciate to get it right. And Ms. Chan, who's not here now, made a comment that's the big thing, is the unincorporated area is really complex. And I think that most people, when they're coming from a city, do not understand. Not only do we have in the unincorporated area our sense of pride for our neighborhood, but that's only some of us. There's a bunch of people that live there that don't even know they live there. A lot of the people, somebody you'd mentioned that San Lorenzo or San Leandro, people live in San Leandro. Well, they're actually in San Lorenzo. And they may think they live in San Leandro, or they may think they live in Ashland. These are things that happen. Cherryland, half those guys think they live in Hayward. So it's just one of these things that it makes it tough. So I
get
appreciate the
it.
work you're doing.
No, I appreciate it. I live in an unincorporated area. My wife was wondering if we were going to vote for mayor. And I was like, no, we're not voting for mayor, honey. We don't live in the city. Yeah.
Which is nice.
Okay.
I'm sorry. All right. So are we going to go in a specific order?
Well,
all right.
Do you want to start with A, B, or C? Do you want to remove any of those three?
Well, those are generalizations of, my preference would be to keep those to the end.
And of course,
because
the
they're
plaintiff map, I
generalities
think.
of a
Yeah.
collision.
Sniffer Rapides map, we keep.
That's fine.
Well, if we are to, so can we bring up that one first and I'll get to my points then on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And when you talked about low deviation not being the goal, I do think Mr. Rafferty made a really solid point, is that if you're talking about a starting point map, having a little low deviation is great, because then you can say, hey, Paul, we want to put this one neighborhood together or something like that, and it's achievable.
Yeah, it was up there a minute ago. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yep.
Could it be blown up?
Yeah. I got it. Oh, sorry.
She's just taking you off.
Okay. Perfect. So I wanted to make a comment on this specifically because I'm sensitive to this as Castro Valley. The west side of Castro Valley is Castro Valley, and it's always been Castro Valley. And the community of interest needs to be preserved. And I don't know if cutting that along, what is that, probably Foothill Boulevard and 580, the left side of Station 4, I'm really concerned about that. And then I also look at what had happened if you look at the little blurb down in Station 2, in 2, the little green part, the lower portion of that happens right at, it's funny, that seems to be the nexus, whether it's the Jackson Triangle and Hayward Acres, that whole area that's super dense, a block one way or a block the other. What is the community of interest and what is the neighborhood? And that's the critical thing. And it adjusts the racial impacts, it addresses all of these things. So that little blurb in there, I'm not concerned with how it's shaped, but I am concerned about what neighborhood that is. Does that make sense? You're looking.
Yeah, actually, now that I'm looking at it, could you just leave it there?
Yeah, I was trying to see if I could find a map that had the overlay of the neighborhoods on it.
Oh,
Didn't do
right.
that.
I appreciate that. Sorry. Yeah, this one doesn't quite, yeah, I don't know that 2 is really reflective of any of the COI kind of information that we've heard about our community for a long time. It really does divides Cherryland
And Ashland and Hayward Acres and Fairview. And Castro Valley. It's got 4 of our distinct unincorporated, or 3 of our unincorporated areas and part of Hayward. And that's, I had some concerns about this map. This was one of the maps I was worried about. So.
Now, and there was a concern about this construction of District 5, addressed by somebody else earlier, on the western side there, where you have population that is different socioeconomic status than the population to the west of the highway, of the freeway, and around the freeway. The one concern about that is that if you were to jettison that portion, where could it go? You can't orphan it either.
And that's one of the difficulties. And it's funny, one of the earlier comments, we got a letter and an email earlier from someone that pointed out that maybe you look at the COI for San Lorenzo, if it has to be split, at which part is HOA, which is not something you're going to find on a map, but it is about their neighborhoods, because it's got a very, very large HOA in San Lorenzo that is pretty distinct and needs to stay as a block. Again, these are some of the non-traditional things. So this is one of the maps I had a big concern with. And specifically it's the biggest portion of it was this area too. But to move that, you've got to move them all around.
1 and 3 though, in general. 1, I think, is the one that is more, and I won't try to put too many words in the mouth of Mr. Rafferty, but 1 does seem to be a lot of the point of this map.
certainly the Eden Shores area, and I'm sorry, I'm just jumping in, so feel free to pull me back. I mean, certainly Eden Shores is one of the areas that is a higher API community, so having an area that supports that, I understand. I am leery of how we divide South Hayward. There is some natural barrier in that community on either side of the 880, but it's also one of our one of the most socioeconomically impacted areas in the county, as well as one of the most diverse places in the nation. And so I'm not inclined to divide that one in three pieces. Makes me a little nervous.
Are there any other comments on this map?
Director Rosen, wasn't the idea of this exercise is to remove maps from the list? So is that your?
This is one of the maps that I had a problem with, and the biggest issue, if it could be tweaked to allow for some of those things. Section 1 is not my biggest problem, but it's 2 and 4, and actually the border where 2, 5, and 3 hit right in there is something that I don't know how to easily fix that. I mean, this is one of these. I understand how long this takes, but I also think that the most important thing is to preserve some of our neighborhoods, and
I would support that. I think number 2 is an odd district because the way it wraps around into Castro Valley, and it doesn't.
Mike.
Number 2, just the way it wraps around in Castro Valley, it's kind of an awkward district, and I don't think it really. It might achieve numbers, but it's not a cohesive community.
Well, I do think Mr. Rafferty is listening, and I see some nodding in his direction. So maybe this is something he could come back with some suggested changes to that as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on. I'll let someone else lead the next one.
Yeah.
How about that?
Well, I'll just make a number designation here without there was map 245, 137, and 138, which were basically the east-west. Yeah.
That's just
You can do fine 24. I guess you can't because it's not.
Let's do it in order so we know
what page number it is. Maybe do you have the page number on the PDF?
No, I just have the ID numbers on them. So
if we could just go in order, I think then we could just know what we've already gone through.
Okay, let's do that. Because a lot of these we've done A, B, and C. Okay, this is all our maps. This was one that again was really advertising the low population deviation. It does have a district that is to the east of 880. I don't know if there's anything in here that jumps out. We can keep it there. In terms of population deviation, like I said, really rock bottom. In terms of the API community, it has 2 districts that are at 30-ish, not as high as some of the other maps. And with the Latino population, again, districts that are relatively equal in that 34 to 30 range. So I would presume that there wasn't as much emphasis on those communities of interest. The second one, 479.
Close.
Is that very similar? It's kind of similar. Huh?
It's got like a little square in them.
That is, yeah, that's.
I mean, it's similar, but it doesn't. Yeah, I'm not loving the number 4 reach in or area 4 reach in.
Yeah, it's like, and it goes all the way down to Fairway Park too.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's Fairway Park and that other. This is where it's like, okay, which communities are together? I mean,
let me look at the ethnic breakdown of this district too. API community, again, like the prior one, 2 in 30 range, 1 at 26 for the API community, and then kind of milquetoast Latino division there. Nothing really standing out there.
Can we look at the other one just for a second? They're really close.
They're basically the same.
Yeah. So can we boot one of them?
Yeah. And
second one.
Yeah. Okay.
This one.
Second one.
So we'll take 479 off. 1 Hayward, 2 South Hayward. This one doesn't follow the 880 at all, obviously. It's crossing it in all 3 of those districts. It seems like it's kind of, let me look at the populations. one district at 37% or 34% Latino. 3 districts over 30%, or 3 districts over 30% Latino, one at 33.6% Asian. But of the communities of interest we've discussed, it seems like it's pairing a lot of more affluent communities with more low-income communities. It seems like it's not following major boundaries in the same way as the other maps have. And I would bet if we threw the neighborhoods on there, that they're kind of divided too.
Yeah, I'm not very comfortable with this map, just to the breaking up of those communities. Again, in the central section there,
Anyone
1,
else?
2, and 4.
Charmin? Okay, I don't need to keep this one. For
3 or 2, 4, 3, 8, 4, 4. Asian and Latino voters each elect a candidate of choice, I presume was what the end of that was. This would be the multi-member plan with ranked choice voting. 2 districts, both at about the same Asian CVAP as the district, as the city, as the district as a whole. So not really creating a opportunity as much in one or another. And again, it would require a judge to allow you to do something like this.
Yeah, I appreciate the thought here. There's a lot to be said for the idea of not dividing our community. We have had that conversation, but I think it doesn't really remedy where we are today, unfortunately. So yeah, I would support removing this one. Sorry, Lynn.
Yeah, there's no point in being subject to litigation again. So I wouldn't take that.
And I want to echo there. I get the point. I'm just not. I don't think we're there yet. That as a community that we're going to be doing the ranked choice voting to risk that in the future we're going to have to go back to districts anyway. I don't want to redo that. I don't want to revisit this.
One other thing that wasn't brought up is that this would require actually a different split. You'd have to have one that had 2 districts and one that had 3.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be equal population in these 2 districts.
Oh.
And so you can see that the deviation there, it's a 60,000 population deviation, so 40% population deviation, which makes sense because you're doing 1 at 2 districts, 1 at 3. I mean, sorry.
Yeah, this was one of the maps.
I'm
sorry. This
that's not a
this looked
serious
very
map.
pretty, like a flag.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just wasn't feasible in really our discussion of any
There
interest.
have been people who have advocated that, like the stratification idea with maps, where you just every community is equally in all districts, but that's not the point of the California Voting Rights Act. In fact, if you said, Paul, we want to do districts where every district has a little bit of each little community of interest, so that all the community of interests matter, I would tell you that the law just doesn't allow that. So this is hard to say. It's
Yeah.
it does have almost perfect deviation, but it doesn't do, and it has a 35% API district, and that's district number 4, which is, I guess, makes some sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this and the next one.
Oh, the next one does it. Oh,
Yeah, now it's vertical.
Yeah.
I think Mr. Turner mentioned earlier that a lot of people, I think, had fun with some of this. And I
Sure.
think
No,
that's
it's a great tool. Fun. So just for this being specific, we'll take 138 out of consideration here.
Yes, please.
245140 compact districts. Again, in the California Voting Rights Act, compact means not bypassing nearby populations to go to far away populations. This is more compact in the traditional sense of a compact, meaning that districts are more square-like circles, fewer kinks. So it's meeting a compactness criteria that's different than the compactness criteria that we have in California. A very small kind of congressional district level deviation of no more than 1 above or below, and does not create what I would consider a Asian community of interest map.
Any thoughts? I don't have any need to preserve this one.
We can remove it.
Okay, removing 140. Neighborhoods are together for a 987. So we don't have the neighborhood overlay on this map right now, but it does look as though it divides the lot of the census designated places. It has a very small deviation. It has two districts that are over 30% Asian, but none which would be considered an Asian community of interest district. And it does have a higher Latino district, District 5.
Paul, one more time, the percentage to make it an Asian designated is it 35?
This is a
34?
fluid thing,
Okay.
and if you're, if the advocates for the API community came forward and they said, hey, we really want a district that's more than 35 or 37% Asian, that would feel right. But what we can't get into is a game of saying, hey, Paul, can you make this 0.03% more Asian? We can't use Asian as the criteria that we're using to do the moving. We can use all the communities of interest, and then we look at the maps and determine, did it dilute the community of interest? And it didn't dilute the community of interest, great. And we can move forward that kind of a map.
So I agree with you. I think this again divides some of our communities. I think the name is a false flag here because this neighborhoods are not together in this.
So is that a consensus that we'll take out 987?
Yeah.
And for the record, anybody watching, anybody whose map we're talking about, these maps aren't being removed from the website as community input. They're just being taken out of being the family of maps that we'll be considering at the next hearing.
And the fact that we're going through them quickly is in no way an indication of our lack of appreciation for the work and the thoughtfulness that went
No.
through it. For sure.
And myself and Liz have looked at these maps, and so
So all these ones that are coming up are potentially valid. They're just, some are more better than others.
It's about balancing different criteria. So we didn't take them out if they met the objective criteria of equal population and,
And just one more point that these can be redrawn. So if there's been comments
Absolutely.
that, make folks want to take a little closer look at, some of the comments, and they can relook at it.
So any of these maps can be redrawn within reason. So if somebody said, hey, I really like this map, but I want to make 1, 5, and 4 all go to the 880, you couldn't do it, right? Because of the population equality. So, but this map does something similar that we saw in a prior map, which is that it creates these 3 districts across the freeway that kind of connects more affluent, less affluent communities. In terms of the API community, it has a district at 33.6. Latino community, it has a district of 34 or 36.2, another at 34.7. In terms of deviation, you have to take that lowest number, the 3.7, and the absolute value of that plus the 1.9. So that's going to be 5.6% deviation.
Let me go back to it, look at it.
Yeah.
I have a question about whether 880 is as big a barrier as we think, because all the roads cross, all the major roads. I mean, when you think of all the roads that cross 880, is that really a significant barrier in terms of all the other criteria we have to do? And I also think about the railroad track. The railroad track, we have underpasses under all of them.
Or Western becomes a whole, but it's actually,
So
this is using Mission, right? That looks like Mission right there.
Mission is on the
everything above it.
Mission is between 2 and 3, 4. More or less, it looks to me.
And then is that Western on the upper portion?
And so I'm kind of wondering, and then usually what happens is the values. My impression is the values. High income goes up above Mission on the right side of Mission, and then it's lower income on the east side of west side of Mission. And so maybe this makes more sense than you think. In other words, 4 being contiguous, 5 being contiguous. I mean, it's not that in terms of income levels. I'm wondering if that's you get 3 low income areas. I guess what I'm saying. Is that sufficient? I don't know.
Yeah, personally, I appreciate the idea that a district is mixed income, because I think it drives the person representing that district to be more diverse in their thinking. But I do think that the COIs are the higher priority setter. But I agree with you that in some areas the 880 does matter.
Yeah, it does.
And in other areas less so.
Not so much. Yeah.
Yeah, but I would be willing to keep this map as a
To look at it
continue
again.
to
Yeah.
sort of have comment from the community.
And we can look deeper at like overlaid with income level of renter and I think I've kind of defaulted to 880 as one of the understandable to voters criteria that really is powerful that people see it like, oh yeah, of course.
This looks better than some of the last maps we've seen.
It
I'll tell you that right
You
now.
keep this one. Okay. Yeah, and there's, I think you've made some, this definitely does show some compactness and clear and understandable to voters kind of criteria. This one is called second attempt.
That was third attempt.
Get it. Let me look at the prior one here.
I think Castro Valley in this one's, that little. I mean, I think
Baja Castro Valley split in 3 cases.
Yeah,
Three
well,
districts,
I
yeah.
think 580 really makes a division between the Castro Valley. It's that is one that does divide the community.
So maybe we could delete this one.
Maybe, yeah.
This one also has a higher deviation. In fact, this deviation would have to be let's see, yeah, this deviation would have to come down in order for it to be really
65 to 50.
Yeah, so the 6.4 and 7.7, so
Let's just delete it.
14.1. So that one is 610, and we'll take that one out. 2 guaranteed unincorporated is what this one is called. I don't know. I don't want to interpret what that means, but it's 745. This one, in terms of the API community, does not create a district that has a strong concentration of API community in terms of a community of interest. Latino citizen voting age population, one at 35.7. I presume it's at District 5. Yeah. Is that?
Well, let
Can you
me
go back?
let me
It's not
understand what's that
31%.
threshold? What is
Yeah.
our threshold there for for the Asian API?
So there isn't a fixed number threshold. I think that if you were to ask the plaintiff what they thought about a 31.6% Asian CVAP in a district, in a city where it's 27 already, and that's the reason for the complaint, and that there is a map that we've seen that was 37.4, they might say that that's kind of not in the ballpark of what they would consider to be removing that vote dilution potential for the API community. So I would suggest that this is, that map, I think she might have taken the pointer over. I can go back to it. It's not doing anything on mine right now.
It says screen sharing. Does that matter?
That's it.
Oh. Could I beg indulgence and get like a 5-minute bio break? Is that possible? Can we do a pause?
Might be a good choice. If we need to figure out the computer, we can do that.
Yes.
You're the president.
Pause, please.
See the Reduction Partners logo, and it has the 4 circles. But the idea was, one was streets, one was trees, one was rivers, one was mountains. And that's here, right? It's like trees, in the field. Well, how's it go?
Each one of these maps.
And you had a good trip?
It's got long.
Oh, I don't know.
Unable to move it?
They had the ID number is different.
Yes,
I thought I heard map A, B, and C.
Well, the A, B, and C was their maps, and these are community maps. And so they give different, so when he was discussing, he was going A, B, and C, which is the ones that he came up with. And then all of these are like neighborhood maps that people have come up with. And so we're kind of narrowing it down to clean property. And so they have different ID numbers. I don't know where this ID numbers come from.
But I guess we start knocking around different maps. Make it life easier.
Yeah.
Make the 3 digits or an alphabet.
Right. Well, I know.
I'm right behind you.
It's like the one at Carter and Cypress. Yeah. So like the structure. Yeah. That is part of that green thing. It's still, yeah. Right. That's what we go to a lot. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't, this wasn't how, that's why I'm glad we're at least going through this, but I didn't.
I was surprised. No, wait till you see it. We did community music last week. That's 65 minutes. That's the first one. Shall we probably have? What everyone really wants is trails and open space. Right. Big brother. Right.
I was surprised. What priority? How we prioritize. Right. So let's just talk about it. Right. We should look at the other. I didn't plan on it. Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Well, it was great to have him here. Did he leave? No. The past time. Where'd Linda go? Thank you. Of course. And always told me these would be the exciting ones. Yeah, this is where it starts getting good. Every night I had to put them on because the squall's coming, you know, and our beach comes out of nowhere. Rain like buckets and it was 30 miles an hour. And started about, right? Like it was crazy. It was a lot of fun. It was just very different. And we realized that about 4 teenage girls that were for years. We had 4 teenage girls and 4 seniors. We were dads and daughters, but it was, we got out the second day. So we watched the boat over here. So now freaks out.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Let's get the meeting going back up again. Thank you for indulging me. All right, where were we?
We are on 745, 2 guaranteed unincorporated. I think this is one that we were choosing not. I don't, maybe we said this one already. My clicker not working again?
He's coming. Hodge is right.
Here we go.
If we're gonna go map by map, we can. I'll just go down. Wait, can we go back?
Oh, now I got it now.
Okay, got it.
Weird, yeah. Okay, so the next time that happens, that's what we'll do.
Okay.
818.
No, wait, this is one.
We're up the one with the 200, that one.
Okay.
Can we look at the demographics of this map?
Yep. So first off, deviation, it looks well within, so it's a 6.8% deviation. In terms of Latino CVAP, 2 districts over 35%. In terms of Asian CVAP, the 31.6. And I think that was where we kind of finished off the conversation, was with that Asian CVAP and a question about whether or not it was an influence district and what we interpret an influence district to be. And that's what the maps look like.
Yeah, I feel pretty okay about keeping this one in. I like some of the points in it, so.
Okay.
Okay. Go to the next one. DBR2, number 818. This does have a different construction than what we've seen in that District 3 from any of the earlier plans.
Is that Fairway Park in there with San Lorenzo? Is that what I'm seeing?
There's some major boundaries like Mission and the highway that it's following, but what it's doing with like 2 going up into 5 there, that little triangle, that we haven't seen something like that.
Yeah, it's different.
Let's look at the population on this one. We didn't look at that yet. Deviation is all fine within boundaries and low. Latino CVAP, 1 at almost 40% Latino CVAP. That might be the highest Latino CVAP we've seen on any of these so far. And then a 37% Asian CVAP in that district number 3.
Go ahead, Lou, do you have something?
Yeah, just wondering, what's the boundary that's between 5 and 3? It looks like a creek, or is it a natural boundary, or what?
Well, that does look like where the population, that is probably the census block boundary.
Sounds okay.
And
it's
the
not a
census block there is going to be huge because there's no population in that northern part of the red, right?
Well, right, there's industrial, partially industrial
So
zone.
that's just, I would, without digging in specifically, I
Yeah.
believe that's a census block boundary. And so it looks arbitrary, but it is the boundary as it is.
I'm not a huge fan of this map. There's some problematic issue. That little pointy thing from between 2 and 5. Yeah, and then I'm looking at 3 that doesn't, some of this seems arbitrary, and I don't know, I'm looking for any other feedback.
I'm okay with pulling this one.
Yeah. This is an example of a map that if you said, hey, I really like this district, that district, but I don't like the pointy thing, we could come back and come up with a fix for it. But I'm just saying, if you were in love with it for every other reason, but we don't need to. Okay. DBR3,
same,
very similar. 824, very similar demographic breakdowns. I mean, we really have to look closely as to what's different in this map.
This may be one of those when people put multiple versions of them to try and get another 0.1% closer in population.
Maybe, yeah, they look identical.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes. So remove that one as well. 824.
Yes, please.
Basically, because there's number 3, and then everything else is just adjusted.
Yeah, and they changed the point on 2.
The triangle is different, absolutely. So you can see it follows the 580 better on this one.
It's better, but it's still not optimal.
I would be okay to keep this one. And a comment is that, we're kind of slicing, as I think your point, Paul, was well made, that, future maps, I think potentially from the consultants would pull pieces of all the things we're talking about.
Oh, okay.
In each of the distinctions. So I'm okay to keep this version of this. This is what the 3rd version of this.
Okay, so we'll keep that one. 2825 we'll keep. This is another 2-district map. And again, it's set for 2 districts in 2 board members in District 1 and 3 in District 2.
I
Same
think
as
we
the other
agreed
one.
that was
Remove
it was
remove
an
890.
understandable concept, but that we were not going to be following
Yeah.
through this process.
This looks like a map that we saw earlier that we kept.
Doesn't look as clean as the other one, but I wonder why. I remember the other one had a lot of the.
Number 2's got a lot of city boundary.
Oh,
Mhm.
oh, that's actually the Castro Valley boundary on the upper left instead of the elegant line. That's the actual Castro Valley boundary. Oh, so this all followed the line.
That has what Matt Turner taught me was the seahorse, which is the area that Hayward annexed for the development of the housing there.
Yeah, Mesa Verde from the Earps. Yeah. Yeah, Gary Drive. That's technically Hayward. Yes, it's a little island of Hayward. Huh.
I would keep this one.
I would keep it also.
And we can also do like a technical fix. See those little errors around the number 5 with those lines and stuff. Those are just little census block boundary errors that we can clean up.
So it's not the monitor.
No. Okay. 463 DBR3 with minor city boundary fix. There's something in this one that is not in that other one. We can adjust to whatever that is.
2 moves over to 1 more. That little pointy thing. Yeah, I don't know which one's better. But I like Rick's point. I'm sorry, and I like Director Hatcher's point about keeping one of these maps. Just which one?
We did, right?
Yeah, we did. We kept the other one. Okay.
This one goes back to South Castro Valley on the south side of 580 is back as part of Castro Valley identified, right?
Oh,
And the
instead of
triangle- and the
580.
point's bigger again,
Yeah.
and the seahorse is gone. You see his snout.
Yes.
It keeps 3 intact.
So do we like this better than the one we kept, or is it we're just splitting hairs now?
I think you just want to keep one and then come back and look at what possible variations.
Okay. Does that sound like a consensus?
Okay, so we remove 463.
This is different then.
We haven't seen something like this yet. There is an issue that I'd like to raise, and you'll know better than me. But remember the discussion about not bypassing nearby population to get to far away population? I think District 3 might not be what we would consider either compact or even contiguous in the sense. Because like as an example, if you're in San Lorenzo and you want to get to the southern part, you have to leave the district to go back into the district.
I'd be fine with.
Yeah, so 3 might not be considered compact.
Yeah.
Oh, of course, sorry. Deviation is low. CVAP for Latinos, a high of 34.7. For the Asian community, it's pretty, there's not really, there's nothing even over 30.
Can we get rid of this one?
Yeah, let's pull it.
That was 506, remove 506.
It was different. Oh. No.
Same
one's different, but same problem. Yeah.
I would get rid of it.
Yeah. That District 3 is a problem. So 516, we'll remove that. The deviation, the Asian population is 32 on this one, the highest, and the highest Latino population is 34.2. Deviation was low.
Yeah, I think there was an interest from a number of the map drawers, including I think the Youth Commission, of having sort of a downtown district. And I'm not advocating for keeping the ones that we've gotten rid of. I think we captured that in maybe map C kind of has that downtown district. I think some of our others too. I just sort of wanted to highlight that is maybe a COI. People haven't actually said, here's the COI, but the way they've been drawing the map seems to indicate that to me.
That's perfect. And I think earlier it was said that it seems like a lot of these maps all kind of meet in the middle. And that is really what happens a lot in redistricting. And it is oftentimes really hard for the reasons we're seeing here to draw the area in the middle to be one cohesive body. You don't need to worry about Los Angeles redistricting, but Koreatown and Los Angeles redistricting for 3 decades has been the pinch point in their redistricting. It just happens, it's right in the middle. And so all the districts need it for population, and it's hard to draw it in the middle unless you start with it in the middle, and then everything else is kind of maybe a weaker district because you've drawn this one thing in the middle. And this makes a non-compact District 3.
Yeah.
But we can look at that as an idea,
I do like the idea about the downtown Koi. We need to look at that as a potential at some point in time to have it in a map. I think that's a priority. That's a good point. Not this one.
So we're removing 520.
Yes, please.
524. Again, it does the same thing all the way up to Cherryland on this one.
Yeah, and I'm also looking at it as Castro Valley. It looks like they went up Redwood Road. Everything east is now in a
As the
Fairview
Seahorse,
district.
right?
Yeah. Well, no, there's that too. Yeah. Yeah. It picks up Ashland. Yeah. Yeah. No. That's weird.
Sorry, there is some logic to this, that like the idea that the Seahorse area kind of aligns with Upper B Street. There is some logic to this, but I agree that it's not compact and, you know, has the other problematic. So I'm okay with losing this one.
I have to say, I mean, one actually is probably the district that you would build the rest of the map around because it hits the boundaries, at least the upper boundaries, and then the western boundary. But I don't know how you can move on from that. You know, I mean, this is.
We look at the numbers on this map.
Yeah. So really great in terms of its deviation is really low. Latino CVAP, there's one at 34%. That's district number 1. And then the Asian CVAP is not the highest, 32.3.
Yeah. So that's
Are we pulling this map? So
Oh, this is a different one.
Oh, this is a different one. Yeah, I was just looking at the downtown area district is.
This
2 is weird.
Yeah.
Well, I
But
have a
again,
question.
now you've got this deviation, you've got this. You're going, that District 3 is the one that my eyes are drawn towards. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I was going to say District 2. I'm willing to bet since there's not a high population base in that whole upper portion, that could probably get absorbed by 4 if that's what you were thinking about the wraparound, and it would still be legal. But I don't know what to do about 3.
Well, here's another thing we haven't talked about, but if you do a map like this, you're going to get 3 representatives from the city of Hayward, probably, and then only 2 for unincorporated, if that matters, you know.
It's a split. I mean, San Lorenzo's. Yeah, you're right.
I just think you can't keep that based on the whole concept of what we was discussing going through another boundaries to, you know, that.
We have better maps than this that I think do what this tries to do.
Okay. 528, we'll remove 528. Deviation was low. It had the highest CVAP. Asian was 33.7 and 33.2 for the, or 35.1 for the highest Latino population.
This was,
There's, I would be concerned with District 1, the way the Seahorse goes all the way up there, that the contiguity of that is so narrow.
Yeah, like a sidewalk.
and yeah, the southern portion of Castro Valley is in District 1, and part of it's in District 5.
You'd have to take the freeway to get to the eastern side.
Yeah, I mean, there was some thoughtful work into this one. I remember the narrative about it. And I appreciated that, but I think the contiguity is problematic for this one. So, yeah.
Yeah, and the narrative, you're right, the narrative helped because we got a whole letter with this, but I think that the goal may be valid, but the map doesn't reflect, I think, what works.
Can anyone tell me why this is called Coyote?
Because the person who put it in chose that name because he wanted names after.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, some other jurisdiction did that instead of numbers, just to
That was
kind of
one
the
of
Mac
ours.
version of,
So
know,
it's like a
updates.
Code name Coyote.
I think the
Well,
purple part
yeah.
looks like a coyote.
I don't mean to influence you, but this one has an awful lot of those little fingers we talk about we don't really like, right?
Yes.
Like everywhere.
So I'd like to say no on this one, but
Yeah, let's pull this one.
When we did the redistricting in Monterey, in honor of Monterey Bay Aquarium, all the maps were named after
fish.
animals, the sea animals.
Oh, that's great.
Dolphin, plant seahorse, things like that.
That's great.
What do we do? Vegetables or something?
Yes.
Or
Let's do that.
art features.
This one is perfection with an exclamation point.
Oh, well, then we're done. Yes.
Deviation is like a congressional plan. There is
The same.
32% CVAP Asian, 35.1% CVAP Latino.
Can we go back to that deviation? Other 54 and 4. Wow.
You're using the last 3 digits of the 463.
554, I think, is what he's.
No, I mean, I'm asking if you could go back to that.
463. Did we already go through it?
Yeah.
Can we go back and look at 463 real quick?
That's in that Castro Valley, the lines almost go around the boundary of Castro Valley. And that's
There, that one. Is this the one? That's what you said, 463.
what was the one you made the comment that it, Castro Valley literally,
It's, but there were other ones that had better maps. It was further down. Going back to where we were.
Sure.
Yeah. Going there. Wait, go back up right there. That's actually that Castro Valley boundary right there, but then it also has it on this side. So it's Castro Valley would be 4, 5, and 1. But that's the this piece is Kelly Hill, right? Is it? Yes, but I'm saying, oh yeah, you're right. Actually, sorry. So that's only 4 and 5 with UCV. But anyway, yeah. So at least they tried to follow some of the boundary along there. But anyway.
Yeah. And something like this, that area in 1 right below the D in Cherryland, where there's a little box and it's not contiguous, looks like there's a rule on point contiguity. You can't have districts that are only touching like catty corner to each other. And I think that would probably need to be cleaned up on our end at some point if a map like this were to be used.
I think.
Even if it's the city boundary for Hayward or something.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I was gonna say. I know that peninsula, just below where you were talking about that is a city boundary problem.
Yeah.
I mean, not a problem, it is the
It
city
is, yeah.
boundary, so
That's
there's some
okay.
logic to that
So
one.
they did it based on city boundary.
Yeah, so there's
And
some
so
logic to that.
Coyote
A
was
couple
that
people.
one.
A
Perfection.
lot of people used it.
We looked at perfection already.
Yeah.
And we were taking 5-4. We were taking that one off. 5-5-4. And then this is 5-9-9. When you look at it has the same issues.
So you're saying that even if the city boundary does that, like corner to
Even
corner
if the
thing,
city
you can't
boundary does
do
that
it?
in its redistricting, it wouldn't be an issue. We
Oh.
would use as, like, if someplace has an island that's just like not even touching, you just draw it to the nearest area. But in your redistricting, you can't have a district that has only point contiguity, even if it is a city boundary. You'd have to like wrap a couple census blocks around it to make it more contiguous. Little thing. Same thing with that green part of 1, where 2 comes into 1.
Oh yeah.
And see that little thing? That would be something we'd have to clean up as well.
These
But
are
it probably-
minor. I mean, anyway, if we like the map, these are things that could be tweaked.
yeah, I'm okay.
I mean, what's,
We still have a contiguity issue with 3. That
wraps around.
even if we keep it.
yeah.
That's pretty much what everything's going to do if we have the center of Hayward is 1, though, aren't we?
And if that center of Hayward crosses 880 like that, yeah.
So it's got to stay on that side of 880.
Or at least give some room for 3 to connect. It's population centers without bypassing nearby population.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Maybe that's either a new
A
map
tweak.
that gets created or a tweak of one of the public maps. Does that make sense? If we have a sort of
We can make tweaks like that. We can look at things like that.
You know, it's hard to get Hayward because Hayward, that section of downtown, because it's in the north corner of the city's well south and east, and then it has that corner in it without taking up some of the unincorporated area. Pending, you know, it's hard to get that as a center, unfortunately.
You agree on the contiguous on the.
Even though it'd be desirable.
So do we want to keep this in play maybe with it later?
Maybe.
599?
Yeah, I'd be okay to keep it because I think there's what you talked about, cleaning up some of those areas
Mhm.
would be the exercise. But I think some of the concepts we discussed are keep them.
Okay.
Is this better version of that too? Oh,
I mean, the Hayward district's the same.
yeah. Oh,
Is that what it is?
Yeah,
Green
that
and purple.
finger
Oh,
going
green
up
and
in there.
purple. See that? Yeah. That seems a little arbitrary.
yeah. Why? Oh, they did that to get the population 0% deviation. I'll bet you that's why they did it. Right.
And we've got the other one that does the same things as this plan.
Yeah,
so
yeah, we're fine.
599, take that one out. 604, another 0 population deviation.
I think we could remove it because
I mean, functionally they're the same. now.
similar.
So
Remove
this
this one.
604. Now we're back to a different family of maps. We've seen this before.
Let's get the CV back.
Let's look at the population on this one. This is a deviation on this one. Is within range. See, the one of 5.8 over is okay because the largest under is 3.1. So it's technically a 8.9% total plan deviation on this map. In terms of the Asian population, it has one at 33.6. Latino population, it has 2 at around 35, 36%. It does what we've seen in other maps, where it crosses 880 but goes up to Mission Boulevard there. And we have a map that does 4 and 5 very similar to this. I would presume 1 pretty similar as well. It has the seahorse.
Yeah, it does. Okay, I don't know. We have a map that's really close to this already, right?
I think so, and now I don't remember what the other one that we kept looked like, but the idea of, sort of north Hayward and south Hayward in the same map seems a little.
There is no downtown Hayward on this. That's what you're saying.
I mean, I think I like to keep this just as a discussion point. Great, maybe next time.
660 includes Hayward Core Services District, 0% population deviation. That 4 is
Weird, and so is 5.
5. Yeah, the creating those puzzle pieces is a little bit much, especially since they've.
You don't need to.
It looks like goofy.
Can we delete this one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
we can pull
So
this
remove
one.
660. Same.
Same.
Remove 666.
Wow. No.
Dragon's map.
Okay.
Look at number 2. That's just.
Remove 681.
Yes, please. It's different. I don't think we've seen this.
let's look at the populations real quick. So deviation, not within compliance. So this is over 15% deviation. That might be why we haven't seen this. In terms of the Asian population, and the most is 31.7. Latino population 33 at 35%, 34 to 35%. Sorry, back up.
Yeah, if it doesn't meet the basic criteria, then.
Yeah.
It's not worth tweaking this map to almost got a center here.
The one that is overpopulated is 2, and the one that's underpopulated is 5. And they are not adjacent. So you would have to do what would be, we call a wrap. We'd have to go multiple districts to adjust this map to make it within deviation.
Delete.
Oh,
No.
okay. 685.
That's really bad.
I recall earlier in the presentation, I said sometimes you'll see a map and you just react. And that was, you've gotten really good at this.
Here's your center.
Let's look at the population on this one. Deviation is low. The Asian citizen voting age population number is a 34%. Latino citizen voting age population, 1 at 36. It has a more downtown Hayward without creating the issue of the non-contiguous thing that I've been talking about.
Can we keep this one?
Yeah. I think this is a keeper.
This is the first one I think since we've been looking at the Hayward.
And with the low deviation, if there are things that we need to clean up, there would be a lot of ability to do that. So. Oh, okay. Look at the population. Okay, the deviation on this one is not enough. So 2 is under by, or 2 is over by 6.8, 4 is under by 6.0. So roughly 13% total plan deviation, and we would have to shrink 2 and grow 4.
They're next to each other.
They are next to each other. So the 3 moves in redistricting are take, you take from one, put in the other, swap between 2, and then rotate, where you have 3 districts and you have to move the population from one to the next and then from that one to this one. So this would be a swap between 2 and 4 to deviate, to fix that is probably the easiest solve.
Sounds like a lot of moving around.
Well, no, this one you just have to move from 2 and 4. Yeah.
No, I'm comfortable with this because I think it's the concept of the roads. I mean, it's the barriers there, and those are all basically roads on the north-south.
Yeah. And again, I'm now looking at it as an eye to how do we get a main central downtown Hayward, and this has most of.
Well, let me ask you something. Why is downtown Hayward sacrosanct for our purposes? Because there doesn't have a large population. You know, I mean, there's population all around the ring of it, but not downtown. And you know, it sounds good, but I mean, you know, it's not, and it's identifiable as downtown. But I mean, in terms of what we're doing, I'm not sure it matters. You know.
So I would contend that actually there is a population of downtown and identifies as that. But really what I'm looking at is the fact that we got so many maps that pull out a central Hayward district that I think we need to at least look at it.
So it wasn't in the presentation, but I'd like to say that there's 3 things you need to think about when you're thinking about a community of interest for the purposes of your redistricting. One is it a group that's identifiable? So if a bunch of kids came in, they said they're all skateboarders, you'd say, aha, I can see what you are. You're skateboarders, you're identifiable. 2, does it have a geographic relationship? So can it be drawn? Can it be mapped? So if somebody came, a group of left-handed people came in, they'd be identifiable because they're using the funny can openers, but they wouldn't be mappable because they don't all just live on one side of town. And the third is, does it have a relationship to what you do as an agency? So the left-handed people might not have any relationship, but the skateboarders, like they might want more skate parks. They might want more access. They might want places staying open later. So they have a direct relationship to a decision that you're making. Is that wrong? I'm sorry.
We should ask the left-handed person about that.
Oh, I'm sorry. My mom's left-handed. I make fun of left-handed people all the time. But so does the downtown have a community that is kind of identifiable as a geographically mappable? And do people who live downtown maybe have a distinct different need from the agency because they're from downtown. That's the way to think about communities of interest.
Well, the other thing is that two parks that are not Hayward parks are in downtown.
Right, they're not hard parks and the library's down, the main library, and there are some different features and different needs and different, and there's lots of events and things that happen in that corridor that actually, I get the
They're
point.
actually almost city functions like the farmer's market and, you know, and the playground, we maintain the playground, but it's really a city property. I don't know, you know.
Yes. It's something to consider. It's something I think that we hadn't thought about enough, and I think it's, at least we're considering it and including it in the prioritization zones.
Great. So we're gonna not remove that one.
Okay.
And then 794, maintain communities of interest. Let's look at the population on this. Low deviation, Asian citizen voting age population of roughly 35%, Latino population 35%. Not a downtown Hayward, right? So Hayward's
Downtown Hayward's linked with Cherryland, it looks like, and then
Well, this has contiguous downtown for sure.
Right.
It includes downtown, but it includes other parts too.
Right. What is that? Yeah, that's a great question. What is that line that's on the bottom of one?
We'd have to go to the web-based map to kind of dig into that.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out the, 2 to 3 split as well. I'm sorry.
If you're not inclined to just remove it, we could look at something like that and answer that question.
Yeah, I'm okay to keep this map. I'm curious by it.
Dig into it.
Okay. Another DBR 3A. We've got one already identified that has a lot of these features. The distinction, I can't see the differences between this and the one we can.
We can delete it. We've already seen that.
Yep. 896, we'll remove that. And that is the end of our 3 hours of looking at maps.
I appreciate you doing that here this evening because it will save us a ton of time later. So thank you for, I'd say suffering through that, but we didn't suffer.
Well, thank you, everyone, and I appreciate the time and the considerations that we all did into this, because this was important, and I'm glad we were able to move on with that. So, where am I? Do we want to move on now to unfinished business? Or do we want to close the public hearing portion? Okay, we're closing the public hearing portion and moving on to unfinished business. 8.1.
Are we gonna get this recap for the ones that we decided to save by number?
The next,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Forgot what my voice sounded like. I just like to make a request for the ones that we did say to keep. If we could get by number, just using the last 3 digits of the maps.
they're going to be pulled out and identified at some point in time, so we could just distinguish which ones are.
The board clerk kept a record of what you wanted to keep and what we're gonna pull out. So yes, we have
Very
tracked
good.
that. We'll be able to share that with you.
Perfect. All right, thank you. That's enough? Yep, we're good. Okay. Thank you. Long night, thanks. 8.1, award of contract for district office painting project.
Good evening, Honorable Board of Directors. Megan Tiernan, Capital Planning and Development Director. So this evening, the board will consider approval of a construction contract with Primal Painting for the district office painting project. The scope of work includes painting 3 exterior facades. One has already been painted by our district staff, railings and doors. As a reminder, the board rejected all bids from the initial bidding process on June 17th. Consequently, the project was rebid with an increased effort to better educate potential bidders on bid requirements. On July 25th, we received 7 bids with bid prices ranging from $29,800 to $89,200. After evaluation of the bids, Primal Painting was identified as the lowest responsive and responsible bidder with a bid of $29,800. If approved, the work will begin in September after the completion of the roofing and HVAC that's part of the ongoing energy efficiency project. So with that, staff recommends that the Board of Directors approve the resolution awarding the contract agreement for the district office painting project, approve the plan, specifications, and details for the district office painting project, authorize the general manager to execute a contract with Primal Painting, Inc. in the amount of $29,800, and also to authorize the general manager to approve change orders in an amount not to exceed 10% of the construction contract. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the board? Could I have a motion?
I'll move to accept 8.1.
I'll second.
Could you please vote? Happened again. What we get? Right there. And passed unanimously. Thank you. 8.2, acceptance of the Palmacia Park renovation project. Palmacia, new projects.
Megan Tiernan, Capital Planning and Development Director. So this evening, the board will consider adopting a resolution authorizing the general manager to accept completion of the Palmacia Park renovation project. On November 6th, the board approved a construction contract with JPB Designs for the renovation of Palmacia. The scope of work included new play equipment, a new outdoor fitness court, picnic tables with shade, a new drinking fountain and site furnishings, a storybook walk, a pathway extension to create an exercise circuit within the park, and planting and irrigation upgrades. The project was funded by the Measure F1 bond proceeds, a grant for new play equipment from Game Time, and a $25,000 grant from the City of Hayward's People's Budget. The project is complete except for signage, which is anticipated to be completed this week. And then photos of the completed project were attached to the staff report. So with that, staff recommends that the Board of Directors approve or by motion adopt a resolution authorizing the general manager to accept completion of the construction contract for the Palmacia Park renovation project. Thank you.
Any comments from the board? I have a question. So what was our budget for this project
It
versus
was
what?
about total project budget was $1.647 million, and the total project costs were 1.43. So there's a small savings.
Just wanted to get that out in the record. Thanks. Okay, can I get a motion? Okay, and go ahead, Director Lambden, with your comment before we vote.
Thank you. I just wanted to appreciate the project and all of the community engagement that went into envisioning and bringing that vision to life. Under budget is also really great, and I'm so glad that our unofficial park inspector gave his seal of approval for those as well. So I appreciate all the work from everybody. Thank you.
Excellent. With that, could we please vote? Passed unanimously. Thank you, everyone. On to 9.1, new business. Policy authorizing the payment of compensation to Board of Directors for up to 6 meetings per month.
Good evening, Honorable Board of Directors and President Rosen. State law allows board members to be compensated for up to 6 meetings in a calendar month if the board annually adopts a written policy based on a finding that more than 5 meetings per month are necessary for the effective operation of the district. Adoption of the attached resolution contains the policy and necessary findings to allow board members to be compensated for up to 6 meetings per month. On August 21st of 2023, the board adopted resolution number 2324-11, policy authorizing the payment of compensation to the board of directors for up to 6 meetings. Board members spend many hours each month in performance of their official duties to the district, often attending lengthy meetings and or multiple meetings in a day. The compensation policy has been in effect in the first 6 months of this year, January through June 2024. The policy and supporting findings must be renewed annually. Board members have attended between 3 and 18 meetings each month, with an average of 9.4 meetings attended per board member per month during the 6-month time period. Staff recommends the Board of Directors by motion approve the resolution adopting a policy authorizing the payment of compensation to the members of the Board of Directors for up to 6 meetings per month and making findings in support thereof.
Are there any comments from the board? With that, then, could I have a motion?
I'll move 9.1.
I'll second.
Please vote. Thank you, everyone. Motion passes 5-0. We're on to other business. We could have brief information only reports. I'm going to start at this end. Lou.
Nothing to report except I had a great Sunday with the foundation. I had a great Sunday with the foundation barbecue and other board members. Huh? Yes, believe it or not. And anyway, and how's your lip?
It's better now. I think you can see. Yeah. Paul, go ahead.
I did lose. Oh. I did lose time on Sunday. It was great, although it was a great time going shopping with Nicole and Steve. Man, I couldn't keep up with that guy. He had the cart full, and I was dragging behind. But it was a good time, and as once again, a little disappointed that we didn't get the public that we would like to. They missed out, but we had a good time. That's it.
Director Lamnin.
Thank you. Yes, cheers to everybody that made the Sunday event happen. I also attended Community Resources for Independent Living. Krill had a celebration of the recognition of the signing of the ADA, and just they are looking at more opportunities for inclusion and community engagement for folks with disabilities, and was happy to talk to them a little bit about all of the work we're doing around inclusion. And I think there's some real good opportunity for partnership between our agency, especially our rec therapy department, and Krill. And appreciated that the team was out at the first South Hayward Farmers Market. The climbing wall seemed to be doing really well there, so thank you for that. And then cheers for the Ashland Zocalo opening. The Camp Create final presentations were really inspiring, and that was fun to be there. And the VIP Mobile Rec 80th Carnival Bedtime Theater, all kinds of really great stuff happening. So many thanks.
Director Hatcher.
Yeah, the H.A.R.D VIP at Carlos B is now I think it's like the third one we've had there. It's just a great community collaboration at the VIP there at Carlos B. So and staff always comes really well prepared and has everybody ready to jump. The Southgate 80th party. It was a cold, windy day, but it was incredibly well attended. Met some great local folks that were there. Great shout out to Alice and Chaz and Jessica and the team that were there putting it together. Rick Sirianni came in like in a double-decker bicycle that he had in there. The food was flowing. Talked to the Frisbee golf folks who are really doing really good demonstrations down throwing the line, and their energy was really good to see there. So it's the 80th party was nice, and also we haven't had a board meeting since Ashland's Zocalo, have we? So it's that is only becoming more and more of a conversation topic within the entire community. So we're seeing that active and actually being touted and the jumping off spot of our next openings. And Yeah, that was, when you look at the H.A.R.D board with our H.A.R.D Foundation, actually almost as much money was gathered at that foundation as the prior that had twice as many participants there. And all of our board of directors were there. Thank my fellow directors as well as the foundation members that were there also. And also Steve's really incredible, just kind of getting everyone riled up to sell some good food for the folks there. So,
And Nicole for coordinating behind the scenes.
yes, of course. Good work.
Well, great. I want to say a lot of dittos. So yeah, I want to thank everyone for the H.A.R.D Foundation barbecue. I want to particularly thank the Hodges for shopping with Nicole. I think that was great. I want to do a personal shout out to my wife for bringing the regulator for the grill because we were wondering what we were going to do. So that worked out really well. Ryan came down and helped us. It was a group effort to get it going, and you were missed, Jim, on the grill. Your name was mentioned multiple times about who's going to flip the burgers next time. I said I was a temporary stand-in. Yes. So that was great. I also reviewed the artists. I spent a couple hours here earlier in the week reviewing the artists for Ashland Roots. And that was a really good experience. I went from when we first saw all of the submissions or all the artists and their samples of their work, I was like, how are you going to divide this up and how are we going to do it? But the process that Rachel that they all did on that, they had a way to get through and winnow it down, and it all worked out. And I think all seemed very happy with how that worked out. So I look forward to that. That's going to be great. The VIP at Carlos B. I also went to the mobile rec at the Adobe that day, and I didn't make it to the 80th, but I heard it was great. And let's see, what else did we do? Oh, I saw Director Hodges and his wife at Potawatomi for this last week at the skit night with the songs and everything and the potluck, and that's always a lot of fun. I recommend everyone trying to make one of those a season to come on the Thursday night and see all that. That was great. And Ashland Zocalo, every time we go by, it's full, and kids are playing. It's active use. It's everything we could hope for. We should be very proud of everyone involved with that. Should be very proud of the work that was done there. So, thank you. I think that's it.
And the lawn looked great.
I think it's still under maintenance warranty from the contractor. Just kidding, Chris. Good evening, Honorable Board. Jim Wheeler, General Manager. Not a lot to tell you. I survived, so you're stuck with me until the next time I try to go out on some dangerous adventure. I did want to remind you that I believe registration for the general election ends this Friday on the 9th, I believe. So if you haven't done and completed, or I know that there's currently 4 candidates listed in there. Some of them are listed in very many places, but there are 4 listed currently. So if you haven't had a chance to go in and do your stuff, please do and complete your stuff if you intend on coming back. That was my one reminder. I also want to thank the Hodges for once again donating the food and drink for the fundraiser for the foundation. That's very generous of you. The food came back and someone was like, well, if you want, and I reminded them that generally that goes up to the yard and it feeds all the guys in the yard for barbecue. So that
another chance to barbecue.
Yeah, I get to make it up. So that will be happening. I believe that what is the Vince's Day? On August 16th up at the yard, I think probably during lunchtime, there'll be a celebration of Vince Vieira's many, many years with the district as he retires on that day. So we'll let you know. I look forward to having Nicole and Christy help me put together a GM News for you because I have been gone. As it turned out, my last act was the board meeting, and I stayed here very late that night. And my first act today was another board meeting. I will be honest with you. I may have sent you some emails. I'm about halfway through 3 weeks of email today with all the other things to deal with, which there's been a few things going on. I am not sure if you are aware there was a fire at Sorensdale on Friday in the morning. I'm pretty sure someone probably let you know that, so you didn't hear it from somewhere else. But we're working right now on mitigation and damages in the thrift store, and There's a lot going on with that. Some of the questions are, how much will this all cost to clean up? And well, I don't know, we're gonna clean all the stuff from the thrift store and do everything. And so, my intention is to take a hard look at the thrift store itself and some of the inventory and the stuff that's been there and what's in the back and hasn't been staged, and maybe use this opportunity to clean it up a little bit and try to figure out how to make it maybe a little less crowded, or some of the things that just aren't worth washing or saving or trying to get the smoke smell out of. That's probably part of the problem. So the insurance adjustment was really high, and part of it was, oh, we're going to mitigate everything in the thrift store. And I think we need to think about what we're going to do there. We also, as you know, the foundation received $50,000 for Sorensdale, I believe from the Rotary, right? And so there's a really good chance we'll go back to Rotary and tell them our intention is to try to rebuild the wood shop with some of that money, because it's one of the most popular things they do there. So just to let you know that. I think aside from that, there's not a lot to tell you that my staff can't tell you as they go down the row here. So I'll stop.
Not much to report. I've been gone as well. So just for the past 2 weeks. But things did survive my absence, which is good. So the new system, I didn't receive any direct contact from staff with any emergencies or crises. So everything was taken care of. We're still working through issues. But now, of course, the remaining the remaining pieces of the system that we need to implement, and closing the books. And so we still have our hands full, but just chugging away.
You want to talk about your staff remotely because of the repairs?
We and the district offices, I'm sure probably on Megan's list, talk about with the air conditioning repairs and the roof repairs. The finance division will be working mostly remotely. We'll have staff on hand every day between 12 and noon. So if you do need personal contact with just finance, 10 to noon, we'll have somebody here on site. And then we'll kind of play it by ear to see how disruptive and, if folks need to be here more. But just for people that need to pick up checks or bring deposits in. But we will have IT staff here every day as well.
Good evening, Honorable Board of Directors. Chris Peterson, Parks and Facilities Maintenance Director. One quick update on Taper and the Medrano parcel. We walked the site the other day with NGO, who was the engineering firm that looked at the initial slide area. We also walked the rest of Taper to look at small slides that we have along the property. So they're working on coming up with the engineering proposal for those. And then so the city of Hayward is just wrapping up on the Medrano parcel as far as fencing and the BMPs or the wattles. So they are almost done with that. I just talked to Sundaresh today. They'll be wrapping that up shortly, and then it'll kind of be ours.
Could I ask a question? So they're wrapping up they're adding wattles, or they're removing the old wattles?
No, they're adding new, just for the upcoming storm season, just to try to mitigate any erosion. And then we're also repairing the fence to the house to the south, the adjoining fence there. We're going to leave. I don't see the point in adding a fence to the back, which was in the original proposal. And so we're going to eliminate that out of the proposal. And there's really no point putting a fence across that, and it wouldn't be an easy job anyways. But other than that, we're rolling.
Good evening, Honorable Board of Directors. Mike Mastroni, Recreation Manager. Recreation is still really busy. We have a lot of upcoming events, and so I won't list everything. I'll save that for more detail for the GM newsletter. But I will tell you about our upcoming events this week. Actually, tomorrow we'll be at the Ashland Community Association's National Night Out at Jack Holland Park, and Mobile Rec will be there as well. And then this Yeah, we're funding that with a $500 sponsorship for that. And a raffle basket as well too, I'm being told. And then this upcoming Saturday, August 10th, will be at HUSD's backpack giveaway, providing 800 additional backpacks with colored pencils, and that will be stuffed into those backpacks. Mobile Rec will be there as well, and we also have our Teen Splash Day at Mika State Park on this upcoming Saturday as well. And all other events and activities will be in the GM newsletter.
Fortunately, my commitment to buy all those backpacks came in, well, unfortunately, they very much told us that much lesser price than the actual cost of 800 backpacks. Fortunately, I won't need to come to you for approval for it.
So Megan Tiernan, Capital Planning and Development Director. So today marked the start of the roofing and HVAC replacement at the district office. So you can see we bought in some portable air conditioners since the HVAC won't be working for the duration, which is until September 10th. So we can mitigate the air temperature, but we're not going to be able to mitigate the noise. So it's going to be pretty noisy here. So people are looking for alternate work. Working remotely again, or we're relocating from one end of the building to the other at other locations just to get through this. I mean,
Just that your GM Weekly will be coming out with all this stuff. It's actually already prepped for you. So you'll see it at some point in time this week.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for the technological changes. Yeah, just little hiccups, not big ones. This was good.
We're getting closer.
Yes.
Let's be real. Let's thank Gary and Nicole and Christy for, I'm not gonna forget my right hand, for just their work in trying to get us to the actual spot. We're so close. I love seeing us on Zoom. I love seeing the cameras working and the speakers being highlighted. And now the next step is just to be able to record these. Although I think if we're in recording mode on the webinars, those could be published as webinars. So we're pretty much there. You just can't watch us on YouTube Live yet.
Thank you. All right. With that, I'm just bringing this meeting to a close.
Are we done recording?